Hi. I know this isn't a very typical video for me, but I just wanted to hop on before and say that the reason stuff is bleeped out is for privacy reasons, because originally I sent this video to my county school board. So I'm taking out school names, the county name, people's names for just like privacy reasons. I hope it doesn't take away from the seriousness or severity of this issue, but I just wanted to come on and preface that beforehand so no one was confused about that. So I guess I'll just let you guys get back to the video and hope this changes things.
Hi, my name is Noah Hauck. Now, the reason I'm making this video is because I feel that I should be using the privilege that I have to express POC's frustrations with the racial discrimination and socioeconomic injustices. And I feel like I should be using my privilege for more than just not being scared to be pulled over by a cop, or not fear that if I step out of my house I might be killed for just the color of my skin. I mean, I don't have to worry about that, and I think that's just crazy that they have to go through that. And I think that it's also crazy that this stuff has been going on throughout for years, even decades, and it feels like the school board hasn't really done much to try and change that, and it feels like the changes that you did make didn't really have an impact, and you didn't try and change them to better suit schools and their needs specifically. And I want to try and change that by making this video, because I want to show the school board that people are really affected by it, and I'm sure you know this, but I want you to really see it and feel the emotion, because I chose to do a video and not just send in a letter, because I feel that a video conveys the emotion that a person can feel, rather than a letter that you can only use an exclamation mark or a period to show that you're done with a sentence, rather than the emotion and tone in someone's voice. And I just think that over the past decade, or however long this stuff has been going on, it needs to change, and there needs to be change now. And I know that as a white person, I have the privilege to do that, and I want to do that now and change the future of Henrico County Public Schools for the better. And I think that the school board needs to take this seriously, because in the past they've said that we need to change, and we're going to change, and we hear you. But yet, all the students don't feel that, they don't see that, they don't hear that. They feel like you guys are just, the school board is disrespecting that and feeling like they just don't want to do anything, and that they're just bluffing and saying, oh, we're doing it, but we're going to do it later. And it feels like the school board is neglecting the power that they have to change and be the hero of. As a student myself, I ask that you take the time and seriously consider implementing better things to make racial discrimination and socioeconomic injustice better in this county. I know that it won't be perfect, nothing's perfect, but you can at least try and see the injustice around in your county and change that, because you have the power, but you're not using it. So respectfully, I ask you to take this into serious consideration and not just blow it off like any other statement that a student has sent in, because this is serious, this affects real people, and there needs to be change now. So without further ado, you're going to be seeing a couple stories from former students and current students in the county to see their experiences and how it really genuinely affects them, and what they think you guys can do to try and help inspire change in the future. Thank you, and I hope you seriously consider this. Alright, thanks. So, could you just give like a brief summary of what kind of happened when you were at...
I had a friend, one of my best friends in middle school, which, I decided in 8th grade. We went to like a visit to see what all the different programs offered. And I decided I wanted to go, and my best friend at the time wanted to go to for theater, and her parents told her she couldn't because it was a Black school. And they kind of, my parents and her parents were friends, and then were not friends after that, because my parents did not agree with with that.
Yeah.
And then just the difference between the two schools was really glaring in terms of how they were maintained, the resources that they had, the resources that the kids had, the level of engagement of the teachers, um, everything really. I mean, and all the kids were aware of it. They play each other in sports. Kids were and see that it's a state of the art school that has everything they could possibly need. And they
Mhm.
compare it to their school, which had very little. I mean, the bathrooms were often like you would have toilets or sinks that didn't work. You would have bathrooms that didn't have toilet paper in them. Um, Problems that you would never ever see. And the kids just weren't cared for. Like it seemed like nobody cared about them. And
Mhm.
the funding that did seem to go in always seemed to go to either the IB program or the arts programs.
Yeah, it's the same with also has the IB program. So I always feel because I'm in the air, so I still have some sort of privilege from being in one of the specialty in one of the specialty centers at the school. But IB is definitely favored above everyone else, and it's very obvious to all the students, including me, and even the people in IB realize that. But the administrators I feel they notice it and they kind of just roll with it. They don't try and change anything with it. So I'm just like, what else can you really do? Because I'm just one student, but with all this going on, hopefully it'll inspire some better change for the future for all schools. How did you feel when your friend's parents said it was too black of a school and kind of just did you talk to your friends? Did you talk to her parents about it? What kind of transpired after that instance exactly, if you want to go into detail about it?
Yeah. I really just I felt bad for my friend that her parents were like that. I didn't talk to her parents about it, but I believe my parents did. Um, and they tried to kind of, I mean, not convince them, but try to get them to look at it differently and say, like, this is what your kid wants to do. This is an opportunity for her to, you know, experience something different
Mm-hmm.
than, having lived in the West End her whole life. And they just were not, they thought my parents were insane for letting me go to, they could not understand why my parents would do that. And I knew, like, obviously, I had visited the school. I knew that it was a completely different demographic than what I would have it. But um, I was excited and I loved it. And obviously, like, I was nervous. I had never been, um, a minority in a school before,
Mm-hmm.
but I enjoyed going to because I
Yeah.
got bullied actually.
Mhm.
But yeah, I guess I mostly just felt bad for my friend, and you know, there wasn't that much that we could really do about it.
Yeah. You mentioned that you went to. Was there anything there that you noticed was like there was discrimination, anything against minorities there? I mean, you said that you even got bullied there as well, so I just was wondering if you had any stories from that as well, maybe?
Yeah. So I guess most of what I noticed, like in terms of racism, it was usually towards Asian students, and it was more like I'm sure that the white kids thought that they were just joking and like but using derogatory terms for Asians, in like a teasing way. I heard that all the time. And there just really when I was there were not that many black students. I did hear people at different times. I can't attest to the validity of any of this, but I definitely remember hearing people say at different times that a lot of the black students that were there specifically to play sports.
Mm-hmm.
And the black students I knew and was friends with were star athletes, so I don't I don't know like how that would happen, or if there was some kind of conspiracy about that, but people definitely talked about that. Yeah. And then I noticed like it was more from other schools, like when would come, they would always have Confederate flags and stuff like that. But I don't remember as much like blatant issues.
Okay.
A lot of homophobia, but not.
So, how do you think the administrators handled? I mean, I guess it doesn't really is involved as much with this scenario, but how do you think the administrators handled this perception of being too black for white students or other minorities to go to the school because parents like your friends would be too fearful to send their kids? Do you think administrators like did anything to help that, or do you think they kind of just were complicit and kind of just sat by and let it happen?
I don't think they really did anything. I don't think that there was enough. I don't think there was ever enough conversation about, the differences in the demographics of the school and why it was like that, and why, that's not something you should be afraid of. I don't remember any conversations about things like that. And I know, like, and then after going to, it's obvious that the teachers know, like, it's obvious that the teachers see those discrepancies. And to my knowledge, like, either maybe they don't feel like they can do anything about it, maybe they don't feel like they have, the voice or the power to, or maybe they had tried and they had just given up. I don't know. I didn't really talk to any faculty about it that I know. It was kind of just like this, it just seemed like something that everyone had kind of, the teachers seemed defeated and like they just didn't even really try. So yeah.
Do you if there was a way to make the perception of better, how do you think the administration or school board in general could try and make change with that to make it less perceived as too black, if that makes sense?
Yeah. I mean, I would really like to know what the process of zoning looks like and when was the last time it was really changed. I feel like, they could say that they put the centers at different schools to try to diversify, but obviously it hasn't really worked. So I just think they really need to look at zoning, and they need to look at how are these students being served, and like how do the obvious differences between the schools in terms of what they're getting in funding and resources, how does that affect the students? Like, they should talk to the students about it. They should talk to parents about it. I just think it should be more of a priority. And I don't know, if you're saying like there's this issue where we have to talk to white kids' parents about making them feel comfortable sending them to a black school, like that's an issue right there, obviously.
Yeah.
So that's such a like huge, like deep-rooted problem. And I think it really starts with zoning, and I don't know, I guess just making people more comfortable with what they perceive as, being different from them, or what they might fear. I think a lot of like parents not wanting to send their kids probably also has to do with the fact that deep down they know that those schools don't have the same resources, because they know how systemic racism works. Like, deep down, I think that's probably part of it too.
And then the last question is there
a perspective you wish school board officials understood about the students so they can better understand the struggles students are going through at the school? Because I know they have certain, like they have counseling and they have programs at the school to try and deal with certain issues, but obviously it still isn't working very well with everything that's coming up and happening and all that kind of stuff. So is there like a perspective you'd like the school board officials to know and be like, oh, I didn't know students looked at it this way, or I didn't know that they were going through this, but since we didn't do anything, it just made things worse, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing I would want them to know is just how much it really does affect students to go to a school that seems like it's not being taken care of, with teachers that seem like they don't care, and then visiting another school to go to a football game or a basketball game or whatever, and seeing how different it looks from your school, and thinking, oh, like, why is that? We're in the same county. Oh, because this school is predominantly white, their parents are, in a better financial position.
Mm-hmm.
I think it really affects the students, and I saw that, and it makes them angry. It makes them feel like no one cares about them. And these are kids who, a lot of them do have a more difficult home situation. Their parents might probably both work full time or might be in and out of employment, whereas most people I knew there had one parent that didn't work much and was home all the time. And the kids at home, like, that should mean that they're getting even more support at school. You know what I mean? Like, they should be working to balance that out. If the kids don't have as good of a situation at home, then the schools should be even better, and they should have even more support.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be the biggest thing.
Is there any last thoughts you'd want to cover, touch upon, give like a word to the school board if you wish, that kind of thing?
I just think that they have an opportunity to make history and correct a lot of things that have been wrong for a really long time. And I think they should take this seriously and really have continuing and ongoing conversations about it, and communicate with students and parents and try to figure out what they can do to make things better. This is something that I have thought about again and again for years, and was really eye-opening when I was there, and really changed my perspective on systemic racism and racism in schools forever. And I'm really glad you're doing this, because I've honestly told people, like, I want to make a documentary about this, and you're doing it. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. Because obviously I'm white and I'm a man, so obviously I have like the highest of privileges here. So I wanted to try and at least use it for something good, because I think this is a very important issue, especially since being a current student. And honestly, even though I went to, which is very diverse and has a lot of these issues, I didn't even really notice it myself, which is kind of scary, honestly, to think about it that way. Nothing comes of it, so.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
every member of the school board should have to read every post on the Instagram, and they should feel sickened by it, and it should be a main priority.
Yeah, because no student, no matter what race, gender, whatever, should be afraid to go to a place of learning, especially in high school, because that's probably where the most formative years of your life are going to be. I know that high school, even though it's sucked a lot of the times, it's been the best almost 4 years of my life. I mean, I've met people who I think I'm going to be friends with forever, so I'm like, no one should have to feel discriminated or feel less than at a school where they can become themselves, because that's going to end up hurting them in the long run, maybe. And it's just, there's so many things you could fix that can help the situation now and make it better for future generations. So I just think that it needs to be done, and it has to happen, and there has to be change.
I totally agree.
So, would you mind giving us a brief summary of the situation that you described in the Google form?
Sure. So this kid named, it was his birthday. This was the night before school. Not exactly sure which day it was. Basically, one of his friends posted a video of him saying the N-word, hard ER, and he thought it was funny. His friend thought it was funny and that it was unproblematic and that it was okay to post it. So then the video basically went viral throughout all of those high. And so the next day at school, since everyone found out, he was getting a lot of dirty looks, and everyone was coming up to him like, why would you say that? And until lunchtime came around, the staff literally, they locked him inside a room in the library because he was being threatened by the Black students, and they were swarming around the doors while the staff barricaded the doors. And basically this was an unfair situation because was never in trouble. He never got in trouble. They told us to stop talking about it and to stop posting the video. People who posted the video were the ones getting in trouble. They were getting detentions and ISS, but they never had any repercussions. After that day, everything went back to normal, and he still says the N-word. So I think it was really unfair that they did that.
So, how did you feel when the video came out, and how did you feel when he was being threatened and then locked in the library? And did you do anything to try and get him reported, or did you try and talk to administrators in any way?
Okay, when I saw the video, I was actually really surprised. I was like, why would his friend post that? Obviously he would get backlash. I didn't understand why he thought it was a good idea to post that. I was confused because, I was friends with my brother, who's Black, and obviously having Black friends doesn't mean you can't be racist, but I just expected him to be, a little more respectful.
Mm-hmm.
About him being locked in the room, I think that was probably the best decision because he would have gotten jumped. I really think so, because there were so many people swarmed around the doors. But I did write a letter to the staff, the all-white staff, and I got a few children to sign it. The letter wasn't very, my words were kind of mean, but I was rude, but I think I had the right to feel that way. They were telling us that the word didn't matter at all and that it wasn't a big problem. I think that's really not how you're supposed to handle that situation. Mm-hmm. And so I sent a letter to the staff in the office, and I'm not sure what they did with that. A lot of people say that they just throw away letters. But after that, nothing happened. So I'm sure they didn't read it, but it was, I tried to make a difference with that.
Yeah, so they never contacted you about your letter. You sent it in and just heard completely nothing about it afterwards.
Nothing.
I see.
Yeah.
Now, I'm honestly not shocked. At this point, not shocked. So, I'm glad that not glad that everything's what happened to incite the Black Lives Matter, but I'm glad it's happening now to get this hopefully resolved. So I'm glad that it's bringing everything to light and that we can actually try and make a change. Especially since our generation, we're gonna fight you. So I know you covered it a little bit, but how do you think, if you can go into more detail, how do you think the administrators handled the overall situation? Do you think they did a pretty bad job of it, or do you think they did a couple things right, or just a majority a bad job at handling it?
I think it was pretty bad. I think they don't value the lives of, the Black students, more so the white students who are, I think we all know that the white students are mainly favored in a majority of school. They say that we should always be respectful, to always understand racial backgrounds and stuff like that. But I think we all know that these white kids who are doing these kinds of things, they're being taught these things at home. And when you come to school and these administrators aren't doing anything about it, because it's an all-white staff, they're not going to have any repercussions, and that's what makes them think it's okay to do these things. I think the administrators, white people, I would say white people who are racist, they really just don't understand what's going on within the people of color community. And so they think that, you know, we're not where we were in 1950, that things are going to be okay, but it's really not. It's really just repeating itself, I think.
Yeah. So, what do you think that the school board officials could do better to make school a safer place in the future for POCs?
I think they should start listening more. They keep telling people to come to them and to talk to them when they feel unsafe, but you know, they listen, but they don't understand. And I think they need to take action as well. I feel like their policies aren't really pertain to the white students as much as they are to the Black students. And that change, I think we should start doing suggestions, because, you know, the community needs to speak to these administrators. I think we should start talking about more experience with the Black community so that these white students can be more educated. I think we need to change just the way we're learning these things in school, because that also influences someone's, you know, their mind and how they think. I think that would help. I also think that to really look at the Instagram page, because there's a lot of stories there that are being ignored and they're not doing anything about it.
Yeah. Like, because I saw that they made that post, like, we hear you, but there was no formal post. They just said, we hear you. Like, they're very vague about how they heard us and what they're going to do. And it seems like what you said, they cater towards the white students over POCs, which is not, like, you should not do that. That's just, like, you just can't do that. And it definitely is still an issue today. So you feel that we should have a more fair and equal, like, sort of code of conduct. So it but it holds everybody accountable and not favoring white people to have them up on a higher pedestal almost so they can get away with more things. Is there a perspective you'd like the school board officials to know to make your experience and other POC's experiences heard to them, and they can also hear these stories and make appropriate changes to make POC's life at school a little bit better and make it so they feel like they've been heard and understood and something was actually being done about it?
Well, I think that one great way to start hearing these people of color, the people of color community, is having a conversation with them. That could be through Black creators. You know, I would say that they bring a lot of speakers to our school for assemblies. I think it would be better off to bring more Black speakers to talk about these kinds of things so that these students understand, as well as just asking every now and then, like, you know, these people of color, like, what were your experiences in class today? Or how did you feel about school this week? Was anyone being mean towards you about your skin color or anything like that? These kinds of conversations don't really happen. I never see them happening. I think that also social media is a really good source for that.
Yeah.
I think there should be a place where you should talk to an administrator, you know, respectfully, and that they understand and that they can make some changes. And I think the administrators should be held accountable if they do not make these changes, if they don't do anything about it. I think that people of color don't really have a place to go to when they're experiencing these things, just because, you know, we've never really mattered enough to them. And that's the problem. I also think that as soon as your viewpoints change about Black people, Asian people, Hispanics, that's when the change really starts happening throughout the entire community. You have to start thinking that we're as valuable as our white counterparts, you know?
Yeah. So basically be able to, like, have a lens and look through their perspective and see how they're, because I know I've talked to other people as well, and I think a lot of people think that when a lot of the white people make these, like, offensive jokes, some of the time they just aren't educated on it and they don't know sort of the historical context of what they're saying. And so it would be like you have more speakers to talk about maybe the historical context at first, but then their perspective of how they've had to deal with the white people vocalizing that towards them. So they're like, share their experience to kind of wake up white people to, like, hey, this is a real thing. Like, you can't just be like, oh, it's unproblematic. Like, it's just a joke. Like, no, like, this literally it's so much more than they realize almost. So it kind of would be like a wake-up call for, like, you could have Black speakers, Hispanic speakers, Asian speakers, all different races. So to get kind of the full scope of it, and not just like one race, because a lot of the races are being discriminated against. So almost like having a cultural day almost, where you can have all these different speakers and go around and be like, can you explain a little bit more about your history and like what's important to you and what is offensive and why you think it's offensive, and how we can do better to make more of a change almost.
I think that this also has something to do with the curriculum, what we're being taught in history class. I think that, you know, a lot of people are just being taught about Black creators, or not Black creators, excuse me, white creators and white inventors. And the history seems a bit whitewashed, you know, where the only thing you're ever taught about for the Black community is slavery, Harriet Tubman, Martin Luther King Jr., and that's literally all I can ever think of. They're never talking about Black experiences to the extent where they're not sugarcoating it. I feel like they're always sugarcoating something, and that's why people don't have that sympathy for Black people when they're saying the N-word or when they're discriminating against us for our skin color. I think the history is it's there, but it's been erased along the way.
Yeah.
I feel like white people should, or not just white people, just everyone in general should just start opening their eyes a little bit more. And the thing you said about perspective, I think that just asking a question along the way could go a long way. Your Black friend, your Asian friend, your Hispanic friend, just asking them, like, can you please educate me? And that would do a lot. That would do so much just for anybody.
Yeah. So that really does it for the questions. Do you have anything else you'd like to add? Just like comments, concerns for the school board, or just in general?
I'm a little concerned that these administrators are racist. I don't think, I wouldn't understand why administrators would be racist and why they've been hired. I'm not necessarily saying that they should be fired immediately, but the way they're doing things is racist, and I don't think they see that. I don't think they understand that what they're doing is racist. I do think that people should just try to educate them as well, because in the long run, it's really affecting everyone in school, and they should focus more on that, as well as focusing on stories about people of color. I don't think they do that at all. Like I said before, should really be looking at. That would help a lot.
Yeah. So you think that administrators should also be reprimanded, and not just the students who are committing these acts?
Yeah.
Where's their history? Where's my history? Where's their history? But you're not listening! But you're not listening!
Police!
No justice!
No peace!
No court!
Police! What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
And if we don't get it,
Shut it down!
and if we don't get it,
Shut it down! This is what democracy looks like!
this is what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like!
This is what diversity looks like.
This is what diversity looks like!
This is what diversity looks like.
Where's my history?
Where's their history?
Where's my history?
Where's their history?
But until then, thank you all so much for coming. You are doing an amazing job just by being here. Thank you. And I hope you all have a safe trip home. Your life matters!
Let me tell y'all something. If you don't think you make it.
Those two voices are part of the millions that have gone unheard of for years, and you have the power to change that. Don't neglect the power you have. Take this video, listen, understand, and make change. This is a pivotal time in our history, and you can be a part of that and make it better for the long run. So please, I ask the school board, please to seriously consider this video and take the changes and take the time to make the changes happen in our county to make POCs feel more welcomed in your schools. Thank you.